Hero. Any person admired for courage, nobility, or exploits, especially in war. Any person admired for qualities or achievements and regarded as an ideal or model. They rise to the occasion. They meet the challenge. They inspire us. They are heroes. Patrick Henry Brady, born South Dakota, 1936. Brigadier General, Chief of the U.S. Army Public Affairs Office. A rescue helicopter pilot in Vietnam, determined that no danger would turn him away from making a rescue. He saved over 5,000 wounded men and received the Congressional Medal of Honor. The call word for the medical evacuation mission was dust-off, for the way the helicopters blew up dust and debris when they landed. They were usually not armed and not escorted. They flew through mountains, jungles, fog, and torrential rains, day and night. They were frequently ambushed.
76, Bravo 5. Still 770, I'll be with you patient in about 15 minutes. I have 3 litter aboard and 3 ambulatory. Also contact Robin Hood and get a tanker down there to refuel me, because I'll be heading out to another night.
Their chance of being shot down was 3 times greater than for other helicopter missions. Of dust-off aviators, 1 out of 3 became a casualty. Many became heroes.
Major Patrick H. Brady, Medical Service Corps, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity while serving with the 54th Medical Detachment, 67th Medical Group, 44th
It's the most
Medical
gratifying kind of an experience that a guy can have. Saving lives, there's nothing like it. You know, I had the experience when I was a little kid. One guy was drowning and he kind of got around my neck. And I kind of just struggled and walked until I got to the other side of the pool with this guy. And I sat down after that, and I had just an incredible feeling of like I'd really done something, you know, significant.
Roger, 3-1 is on his way.
But you get that same feeling after a mission where there are tough things to overcome. You've got some obstacles, you've got some problems, you've got some people who are hurt.
Heads up, Bravo 5. Have you located our smoke, over? Roger, we have purple smoke. Is that affirmative? This is Bravo 5. That's affirmative, over. Roger, keep smoke in ALZ at all times.
You got to get into that area without getting shot, and then you got to get those guys on, no matter how many of them there are, and then you got to be able to lift them out of there.
Let's get those stretchers. You get down there now. Come on. Here we go. Okay, let's get him on. Okay, come on, let's go now. Easy.
That's a wonderfully exhilarating feeling when you finally say, I'm airborne, I'm en route to the hospital. It's better than anything that I've ever experienced in life.
Among helicopter pilots here in Vietnam, Pat Brady is a legend. His name is known the length and breadth of the country.
What is your philosophy behind your refusal to stay out of even the hottest combat zones?
We feel here that our tale is no more valuable than the next guy's. There's two schools of thought on it. Some people feel that if you take a crew in a $300,000 aircraft and take it into a hot area, there's a chance that you lose the crew and the aircraft and not get the casualties out. And there may be some good reasoning behind this, but we feel that it's worth a try, and that those people down on the ground who are putting their tail on the block for us have every right to expect us to do the same in return. And as long as they ask us, we're going to go.
Pat Brady first went to Vietnam in 1964, a relatively relaxed time compared to what would come later. There was time for the 28-year-old Captain Brady to be a tourist. With his own movie camera, he recorded scenes of war and peace.
And here's pictures of the villages. The country is incredibly beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been in my life. Here's some of the rivers and canals down in the Mekong Delta, and these people, many of them who were just so remote from the war and all about it, going about their peaceful way while they got helicopters and everything all around them. And the children would always come around. They were fascinated by the helicopters and also the sea rations and the things that we didn't eat, the fruit and the cakes and stuff like that, we would give to the children. Well, here's one of my buddies that I had them around the countryside and flower girls in Saigon, and they'd pop around when we came, and we'd make them salute and do their thing. We used to fly up these canals that you see here into the hospital. There was a soccer field near a Navy hospital where we brought most of our patients in those days, and it was kind of a strange contrast. We flew directly over a swimming pool, and you'd be flying over the swimming pool with a helicopter full of patients from a war just a few miles away, and there was people swimming and diving and having a great time in that swimming pool there by the Navy hospital in Saigon. In these days, we carried a lot of civilians, and we tried as often as we could to keep the families together, because oftentimes if you pick a child up or somebody out of the mountains or the villages, they could be separated from their mother and father and never see each other again. Now, this is a picture of 2 Viet Cong prisoners, and it was very difficult they were very difficult to identify, and we often wondered how they did identify the Viet Cong. But you see them tied up, and they're young, and they're out in the field, and they're not in the army, and you wonder how that they might have got into a place like this. But actually the Viet Cong laid in a ditch the night before, came up out of the ditch into the outpost and caused quite a few casualties. And here you see them bringing the casualties to our aircraft. I can remember flying into the area, coming over a fence, and there was actually a stack of babies that had been killed in the mortar attack. It always seemed like the children were the ones that suffered the most. This was the first meeting I had with General Westmoreland. When he came to the country, it was kind of a laid-back, 5-day-a-week, all-daytime war, and he changed all that. He put it on a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day basis, and really made a difference when he came over there. Here I'm walking out. I didn't know, I guess it was being filmed, and my buddy yelled at me about this time, and so I looked up to see who he was. Here I am getting ready to go on my last dust-off mission, the first tour. I thought it would be my last one ever, and so they got the camera to take pictures of it, and I'm giving those guys some strict guidance on how to keep me in the air and keep me alive on this last mission. You always hear about folks that cash in the last time out, and didn't want that.
But 4 years later, Pat Brady would return to Vietnam, to a war that was hotter and bloodier, and to one long day on which he'd earn the Congressional Medal of Honor. Heroes will be back in a moment. We now return to Heroes. It was a new year, 1968, one of the most tumultuous years in American history.
And with your presence here and anything else that we have to do to get our point across, that there's no question that we can defeat busing.
In the U.S., the civil rights movement was in full swing.
First, let me say that the nonviolent movement never fails. Whenever you make a commitment to truth and a commitment to the search for it and stand up against injustice, you don't fail.
President Lyndon Johnson visited the troops in Vietnam and then stopped off in Rome to visit the Pope.
I sat with His Holiness Pope Paul in his Vatican study. I wanted to tell him that the United States had been actively seeking an end to the war in Vietnam, that we had traveled dozens of roads in search of peace, but that thus far these had proved fruitless journeys.
Pat Brady was again flying dust-off missions in Vietnam. On one long day in January, Captain Brady would pilot 3 different helicopters which would be hit by 400 enemy rounds, fly into areas no one else could, and rescue 51 wounded men.
On January 6, 1968, Major Brady, commanding a UH-1H ambulance helicopter in the vicinity of Chu Lai, volunteered to rescue wounded men from a site in enemy-held territory which was heavily defended and blanketed by fog. To reach the site, he descended through heavy fog and smoke and hovered slowly along a trail, turning his ship sideward to blow away the fog with the backwash from his rotor blades.
I would go to the edge of the fog, the valley fog, knowing the area and knowing that if I follow this trail and then this river and then this whatever, I could get into where the patients were. So I would simply go out to the edge, drop down on the deck, turn that sucker sidewards, and then just work my way through the fog like that. And you can't see very far, but you can see far enough, and that's all you need. You can't go very fast because you'll outrun your visibility, and then you'll be in trouble.
Despite the unchallenged, close-range enemy fire, he found the dangerously small site where he successfully landed and evacuated 2 badly wounded South Vietnamese soldiers. He was then called to another area completely covered by dense fog where American casualties lay only 50 meters from the enemy. 2 aircraft had previously been shot down and others had made unsuccessful attempts to reach this site earlier in the day.
3-1 negative. Bravo 5, dust off 3-1. We're coming down through a hole, so if you could keep smoke in the area until we locate it, we'd appreciate it. Over.
The deal was they're mortaring the place, and so you have the patients set up at the north end, and what you do is you shoot your approach to the south end. Then you sit there and you wait as long as you can until you really start to get uncomfortable. And with me, as you see, my ears used to burn, and it was kind of I could stand it so long, and then my ears start burning, then I know. So the time it takes a guy to set up, get you in his sights, set his mortars, you sit there, and then you move as quickly as you can to the other end of the pad, pick up the patients. Several occasions, the mortars would be coming right in behind you while you were getting the patients from the front end of the...
Got some fire. Coming up. Bravo 5, we're taking a little fire back here when it's picked up. Going right through it.
Again during the day, Major Brady landed at another site surrounded by the enemy where the friendly ground force was pinned down by fire. Although his aircraft was badly damaged during his initial entry into this area, he returned minutes later and rescued the remaining injured.
I swear to God, I can still see those areas to this day, the hot ones. But I would come up over an area, and with all the information that I had in my mind, a highway would come out of the sky right into that area. A pathway would come right to my mind. And if it meant a spiral in, or if it meant going over here, getting down on the deck, come up the riverbank to this point, turn up over the top of the trees, in, sideways, whatever. But it didn't always work because we didn't always get good information. But it worked most of the time.
And the other one is on the back and now left leg. be on your pad in 4 minutes. We have the 2 patients on board. One has a gunshot wound in the leg, the other one has a gunshot wound in the back.
The thing that drove me was that I got the thing about pain, I guess. I don't handle it very well. And I would try and go for every patient the same way I would want somebody to come for me if I was hurting. If you look at it from that way, there's just not very much that will stop you.
Obtaining a replacement aircraft, Major Brady landed in an enemy minefield where a platoon of American soldiers was trapped. A mine detonated near his helicopter, wounding 2 crew members and damaging his ship.
This is Rebel 6, request dust off. Dust off, over. This is Rebel 6, request dust off. Request dust off.
When you talk about all the ways to hurt a person, the mines are the worst of anything that I can think of. Nuclear or napalm or anything. Mines are the worst.
Dust off 3-1.
If you can visualize a crew, my crew, I landed the helicopter and I sat there, I'm safe. And I said, go get him. And the medic and the crew chief jumped out of the helicopter, ran into the minefield to police these guys up. I get emotional when I think about it. So when they came back to the helicopter, they set off one of the mines, and it blasted the helicopter. In fact, it blew both of those guys up in the air. And but they were all right. They were not hurt badly, and the helicopter was still flyable. But I can't imagine, somebody getting out and running through a minefield looking for patients when nobody around us would move. But they did. Both guys did, and they both got Silver Stars plus Purple Hearts.
Throughout the day, Major Brady utilized 3 helicopters to evacuate a total of 51 seriously wounded men, many of whom would have perished without prompt medical treatment.
So we're all together, and they've got confidence that I can do this thing, and I got confidence that they're going to jump out and get the patients if in minefield or no minefield. And so together, you're just hard as hell to stop. And with everybody working, you're hard to kill too, because you do the right things at the right time, and just like one being about the same kind of business. Never flew with a guy that I didn't think I could outfly. But that's characteristic of dust-off pilots. So I'm not modest when it comes to that business, I don't think. I knew what my capabilities were. I never wanted to come home without that patient. I couldn't face that, I don't think. And that's the fundamental of the whole business.
Heroes will return in a moment. We now return to Heroes. By the end of his second tour in Vietnam, Pat Brady had a hero's reputation, but he didn't see himself that way.
Do you feel like a hero?
Negative.
Why not?
I don't really think there's anything, such a thing as a hero. I think that these things happen, somebody sees them happen, and actually it's a man doing his job at the right place at the right time.
Major Brady's conspicuous gallantry was in the highest traditions of the military service and reflects great credit upon himself and the United States Army.
I had kind of a feeling of embarrassment, really. It was just kind of gee whiz, what is this all about? And then I got my buddies out there in the family, but my buddies out there, they're probably making faces at me, but when you think people say I'm lucky because I'm Irish or whatever, but that's it. It's luck.
Pat Brady is lucky. He survived 2 very dangerous tours in Vietnam and was able to return to his large family, his own Brady bunch, 5 children and his wife, Nancy Lee. To her, his heroics in combat were very much in character.
This is going to sound a little strange, but I wasn't even surprised because he was very selfless. And I expected him to do it, and he did it.
Today, with 30 years of active service, General Brady is chief of the Army's Public Affairs Office. He works at the Pentagon, but often takes the Army's message on the road.
One time I was at a helicopter display, and it's one of these community relations kind of things that I told you about, where you bring in the public, and I had the dust-off aircraft there. And I got the dust-off aircraft laid out there, and with our litters and our crew and the people from the crowds that come into the post come up and ask you questions about dust-off. And so I'm standing around my aircraft, and this pretty little thing comes up to me, and she says, do you mind if I give you a hug? And I said, God, no, you can hug me all you want. And then she hugs me, and she says, well, why I wanted to do that is because it was one of these aircraft that saved my husband. And her husband's right behind her, and he walks up with kind of a limp. Well, to make a long story short, it turned out that I was, in fact, the guy that picked up her husband.
Hero, a person admired for courage, nobility, or exploits, especially in war. A person admired for qualities or achievements and regarded as an ideal or model. He rose to the occasion. He met the challenge. He inspired us. He is a hero.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.